Hello, my name is David Von Behren. I work as the assistant organist at Harvard Memorial Church, and I'm joined today with my wonderful colleague, the Gund University organist and choirmaster, Edward Jones, who will be speaking today with me about the music that you will be hearing for the 116th annual carol service at Harvard Memorial Church. And Ed, can you tell us a little bit about this service? It's the oldest service in the country. Just give us some background about,
Yeah.
about this event.
Thanks so much,
Yeah,
David. Great to be
absolutely.
talking with you again.
Yeah,
As
absolutely.
you mentioned, we're on our 116th iteration of these carol services. So in 1910, the then newly appointed organist and choirmaster in the church, Archibald T. Davison,
Yeah.
one of my predecessors and a very important figure in American choral music, devised this service with the Plummer professor of Christian morals then
Yeah.
as a sort of community outreach towards Christmas, a choral offering to
Wow.
the Harvard and Cambridge communities.
Hmm.
And I think it's remained virtually unchanged in terms of its format
Yeah.
ever since. So the structure is 3 lessons from Scripture, and then congregational hymns or carols, whatever we want to call them, beginning with O Come All Ye Faithful, but sung in Latin, Adeste, fideles,
Fantastic.
and then ending usually with Hark the Herald Angels Sing. That occasionally has changed, but this year we're doing Hark the Herald. And then in the middle, we do various carols with the choir, with the Harvard University Choir, who are busy preparing this
Yes.
service or these services. And it's always a big highlight of their year. So I like to think of the carol service as blending tradition with innovation. I mean, Christmas is all about nostalgia in some ways, and
Right.
not only nostalgia in a sort of childlike way, but for the students who've sung um, in these services over the years in the Harvard University Choir, they have a collective memory about what this service is about. Also, our community members, our parishioners,
Mhm.
all goes into thinking about how the service can blend tradition and innovation.
Wow, that's fantastic. And as you talk about these two concepts of tradition and innovation, how does this influence the program that we will be
Yeah,
hearing this year?
yeah.
Will there be some familiar hymns? You mentioned "Hark the Herald," some of these these hymns, and as it mixes with the carols that have been chosen, what can we expect to hear this year?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, a nice mixture of the traditional and the
Fantastic.
new.
Yeah.
So I think most of the congregational carols will be familiar to everyone. We do Lo
Hmm.
How a Rose, we do Angels, we do Silent Night at the end of the service, which is very beautiful. Remember that Memorial Church is built as a war memorial originally for the First World War dead. And so the service always begins in the memorial room, which is the beautiful room opposite Widener Library, originally, which was the main entrance to the church, so you'd always go through the memorial
Wow.
room to enter the sanctuary. But it is the memorial to the First World War dead. And so we continue to memorialize that at the latter part of the service by singing Silent Night simultaneously in English and German,
Wow.
which is a
Hmm.
reference to that very moving episode in the First World War in 1914, when ironically all the soldiers thought the war was going to end, which of course then it didn't for another 4 years. But when the story goes that people on both sides of the trenches came out into no man's land
Hmm.
to play football, or I guess soccer, as they
Right.
call it,
Yeah.
and sing the famous carol Silent Night together in English and German. So we actually
Wow.
almost close our service with that beautiful tradition, with people singing in the congregation simultaneously in English and German,
Wow.
which is really lovely. And then in terms of the other things, one thing I find quite interesting about Christmas music is the melding of old texts,
Yes.
old Christmas carol texts with new music,
Yeah.
which I think then the way it works together gives the old text a new meaning by having new music put to it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we have several examples of that today. In our services coming up. And the main centerpiece of the service is going to be our new commission for the year. We always commission a composer to write something. And this year it's Nancy Galbraith, terrific composer based at Carnegie Mellon University, head of composition. And we did one of her big oratorios last year, Sacred Songs and Interludes, which was just beautiful. She's such a wonderful composer in all different medium, actually. But for choral music, the way she spaces chords, the way she thinks about choral sonority is truly beautiful. And she's come up with a wonderful carol for choir and organ based on the very old text, Hodie Christus Natus Est, Today Christ is Born, and talking about the angels singing about the glory of the Christ child. And it's a great piece sonically. It's very alive, very vibrant. I think it'll be a great centerpiece for the carol service. So very excited about that. And of course, our composer in resident, our dear friend and colleague, Carlson Kuhlmann, has also written a beautiful, he always writes a new piece for us every year as well for carols. And this one is a lovely setting called Winter Solstice. So looking forward to that one as well.
Wow, that sounds just incredible. Can you give us an insight into some of the other composers that we may be hearing on this program?
I always tap into anniversaries.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we have a few of them this year as well. Palestrina, of course, the great Italian Renaissance composer, which we've been celebrating all year. We are going to do one of his most beautiful Marian works, Alma Redemptoris Mater. Simple, gorgeous. The sonority is just lovely. And then Arvo Pärt, the wonderful composer, is celebrating his 90th birthday this year. And we are doing a setting called Morning Star of his, which is a text that is inscribed above the tomb of the Venerable Bede in Durham Cathedral. Christ is the morning star. And again, very powerful. His evocative style of choral music, slow-moving, repetitious, but with just amazing sonorities that I think will be gorgeous. And then Orlando Gibbons, English composer, 1625 is when he died. We're celebrating him with one of his hymn tunes that I just love that's set to a Christmas carol text by George Wither.
Wow. This just sounds like such an incredible program. Yeah. And as you mentioned, some of the hymns, people coming can be prepared that they're going to also participate.
Absolutely. Right. It's a participatory service, whether they like it or not. And so you get to sing hymns, very familiar ones, as I say. Adeste, fideles in Latin. So people will know the tune, maybe not so familiar with the Latin, but that's a tradition that's been going ever since the inception of these services. Hark the Herald, as I mentioned, Angels from the Realms of Glory. Angels We Have Heard on High. Yeah. Sorry, I had the wrong angels in my head. And then Lo How Arose, the beautiful old German carol. So very exciting.
This just sounds like such a wonderful mix of pieces and hymns, and quite an exciting event. And the church is pretty full.
The church is usually packed for these services, which is lovely. And it's such a beautiful building anyway, inside and out. But particularly inside, it's decked out with all the poinsettias. It's lovely. Everyone is ready for the Christmas message. So it's a very beautiful time, very special. And just talking about I've talked about some of the innovations within the carol service. I think some of the other traditions outside of the congregational hymns or carols are some more familiar carols that people will know. We're doing a setting of Ding Dong Merrily on High, which is wonderful. A setting of Tomorrow Shall Be My Dancing Day. Again, an old text, but in a new-ish setting by the Swiss composer Karl Ruti. And then one thing I'm very excited about, Alice Parker, the great arranger, composer, amazing person for American choral music.
And she just recently passed.
She did.
Right?
She did die a few years ago, and so she wrote for our 100th carol service actually a wonderful setting of While Shepherds Watch Their Flocks, and so we're reprising that this year, which will be great in the style of an early American hymn, and that's always a good one to do. So very excited about that.
That's so special. Wow. It's really incredible to hear, that there's just such this mix of canonic rep as well as and canonic texts perhaps too, but with these new settings as well.
Absolutely. And I think that again taps into the fact that Christmas is about reflecting as well as the joyfulness of the Christmas message.
Right.
And I think that is often reflected very nicely in these services. And one nice thing is that we, with our wonderful colleagues at the media services, live stream the Tuesday service. So I know people, generations of past choristers will be tuning in. Some of them having carols parties, watching it together all over the world, which is really special to think that our community is not just within the physical church itself, but is now getting outside of its walls, which is lovely.
Wow. It's incredible to hear, too, as you talk about this program, what a thoughtful flow there is between the spoken lessons and how that connects then to the music. So in a way, it's you're as a listener, you're following this narrative orally, being able to hear the spoken text and then it being sung and evoked through the music. Is that really?
It's actually quite a nice anchor for me to choose music around these lessons. So, for example, we start off in the memorial room. We're doing a lovely piece this year by Patricia Van Ness, most of whose choral music was written for First Church in Cambridge, so just across the common. And she has set The People That Walked in Darkness Have Seen a Great Light, the Isaiah text. So there's something very nice about that mystical beginning, which is more specifically an Advent text than a Christmas text. Of course, one of the ironies is we do our Christmas carol service because of the schedule of our students. We do it right at the beginning of Advent rather than right at Christmas. So we're doing a little nod to Advent to talk about the coming. And then actually we jump into the first lesson, which is the Annunciation lesson about the angel Gabriel and Mary. So generally those works around there are based on Marian themes. And then we go into the angels and the shepherds. And so that's, countless opportunities for angelic or shepherding carols. And then the third lesson is the wise men lesson. So that often goes along with carols about the wise men, or in this case, Dancing Day and things like that, stars, which is lovely. And then we end around Silent Night. So I tend to bring the volume down a little bit to lead into that. And then we do end with quite a big showstopper as well.
Just incredible. Thank you for explaining this arc.
And of course, the service is bookended by your fantastic organ playing, as it is in the middle as well. Your wonderful accompanying and wonderful playing. So, can you tell us a little bit about your prelude music?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
also your postlude.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just looking at my notes here. Of course, we mentioned our wonderful composer in residence, Carson Kuhlman. So we'll have 3 works to kick off the prelude that he has written. And then just this really beautiful Villancico of Alberto Ginastera, some work by Cesar Franck, and then a friend of ours, Dan Locklear, this really beautiful Christmas lullaby and pastoral that he has composed, a nice little lullaby set by Franz Liszt. And then we don't often hear her music around Christmas time, but Jean Demessieux. So I've three of her chorale preludes, based more so on Gregorian chant themes, but are more reflective of the season. So for me, it's nice to have an opportunity to play some very new to me
Yeah.
works as
Terrific.
well. I think a lot of that comes from my inspiration of your choosing,
Yeah.
these new choral works that are so reflective of the
Yeah.
season as
Well, the
well.
nice thing about
So
the Messier and taking Gregorian chant themes is it's the same as we were talking about with text in new settings.
yes,
You're actually taking a very old melody
yes,
with a composer who's then reworking it in a different fashion. And so it has the same kind of interplay between the old and the new that the carols do. So
oh,
thanks
of
for
course,
programming
yeah.
those.
No, I think one thing that's such a joy to me is that we can collaborate together, and really
That's one
creating.
of the great
Yeah,
pleasures
yeah.
of
Well,
my job,
likewise,
certainly.
and creating a musical experience, for folks.
Absolutely.
So
And what
absolutely.
about the postlude?
Yes, we'll be hearing the Toccata on Antioch, which is the tune for Joy to the World, and just very fun and mixed meter
Yeah.
at the end of this year's service. So
By Craig Phillips,
by
right?
Craig
Yeah,
Phillips,
one of the
that's
great
right.
American
Yes,
composers.
yes, absolutely.
Really terrific to hear that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
before we close, I want to just give a big shout out to the Harvard University Choir, who this is
Yeah,
always a highlight of the year for them. They're in the
yes.
middle of exams or preparing for exams. Many of them have 9 a.m. exams the next morning, but they really pull out all the stops, pardon the pun,
Yeah,
for this service. They're super excited about it. And I can't thank them enough and you for all the
thanks.
work going into
Of course.
these services, especially at the end of a very busy term.
Yeah,
So it's very exciting.
yeah. I mean, yeah, for them, it's a Herculean effort,
Mm,
and they just really rise to the
they
occasion,
really
and
do.
every year, and it's just such a joy
And
to
it's a lovely
get
choir
to do
this
this.
year. We're very fortunate.
Yeah,
So looking
absolutely.
forward to it very
I
much.
am.
Do you want to just
Yes.
remind us when carols
Yes.
are?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but December 7th,
Sunday,
Sunday,
December
at
7th.
5 o'clock p.m.
Hmm.
And then if you want to tune into the live stream, if you're not able to come in person, the second service will be on Tuesday, December 7th at,
9th. Tuesday,
Tuesday,
December
December
9th
9th
at
at
8
8
p.m.
o'clock p.m. So
Yeah.
tune into the live stream.
And it's worth getting if you're coming in person there a little bit early because
Yes.
generally the services are fairly well attended and you may have to wait outside for a little bit, but
Yes.
hopefully not for too long.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to seeing you there.
Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you, David.